Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. Ryan Mitchell first met Olivia Carter on a cold fall night at the University of Chicago. It was a regular fraternity event that Ryan didn't want to attend. As a computer science major with high grades but poor social skills, he felt that such occasions always made him uncomfortable. However, fate seems to have a plan. As Ryan walks into the raucous party scene, his eyes are immediately drawn to a quiet figure in the corner. Olivia stood there, a glass of juice in her hand, looking equally uncomfortable with the hustle and bustle around her. Ryan worked up the courage to walk up and strike up a conversation. "Hi, I'm Ryan. You don't look as used to the occasion as I am," he said a little nervously. Olivia looks up with a soft smile. "Yeah, I prefer a quieter place. I'm Olivia. Nice to meet you, Ryan." And just like that, two introverted souls found each other in the midst of the hustle and bustle. They chatted throughout the night, with a steady stream of topics ranging from their respective majors to their future dreams. Ryan discovers that Olivia is a law student, smart and ambitious. Olivia, on the other hand, was drawn to Ryan's sense of humor and passion for technology. Over the next few months, Ryan and Olivia's relationship heats up quickly. They often studied together in the library, chatted about life in the campus cafe, or just sat quietly on the shores of Lake Michigan, enjoying each other's company. Ryan felt the beauty of love for the first time, and he thought he had found the other half of his life. At graduation, Ryan proposed to Olivia. On the observation deck of Chicago's tallest building, facing the sparkling night view of the city, Ryan got down on one knee and placed a simple but meaningful diamond ring on Olivia's finger. Olivia was moved to tears and said yes without hesitation. After their marriage, Ryan and Olivia decided to stay and grow in Chicago. With excellent grades and internship experience during school, Ryan managed to join an up-and-coming internet company as a junior product manager. Olivia began her legal career by joining a prestigious law firm. Both worked hard, often working late. But every night, no matter how tired they were, they made time to have dinner together and share each other's day. On the weekends, they explore all corners of Chicago or just nestle in and watch movies and enjoy the world as a duo. As time went on, Ryan gained traction in the company and led the development of a highly successful software product that generated significant profits for the company. Olivia has also risen through the ranks of the firm to become a highly respected young lawyer. Their hard work paid off, and they soon bought their own house in a Chicago suburb and added 2 cars. Life seems to be getting better and better, and Ryan and Olivia decide to have a baby. Shortly afterward, they welcomed the birth of their son, Ethan. 2 years later, a daughter, Sophie, was born. Ryan feels his life is complete with a career, a family, a beloved wife, and adorable children. What Ryan doesn't realize, however, is that underneath his seemingly perfect life, dark waters have begun to flow. As work got busier and busier, Olivia began to work overtime more often. At first, Ryan understood his wife's career aspirations, and he volunteered to take on more of the housework and childcare responsibilities. However, he doesn't notice that Olivia's eyes gradually lose their usual tenderness and her smile diminishes. Ryan is still basking in his happiness and believes that if he works hard and maintains good family relationships, life will continue to be beautiful. He fails to realize that marriage is like a ship sailing in the ocean. It takes 2 people to steer the ship together to weather the storm. And Ryan, at that moment, had unconsciously let go of his hand. Just when Ryan thinks everything is on track, fate is about to deliver a blow that will change the course of his life forever. Ryan Mitchell stands in the luxury kitchen he and Olivia built together, mechanically stirring a pan of spaghetti sauce. Outside the window, the Chicago sky was an overcast gray, as if foreshadowing the coming storm. The clock is pointing to 9 p.m., and Olivia still shows no sign of coming home. "Daddy, is Mommy coming back today?" 8-year-old Ethan asked timidly, standing in the kitchen doorway. Ryan forced a smile. "Sure, Mom's just too busy working. Come on, let's eat first, and we'll heat one up for Mom when she gets back." But Ryan knew in his heart that this wasn't the first time. In recent months, Olivia has been coming home later and later, sometimes staying out all night. Every time he inquired, the response was always the same. The case was too complex, and our team had to work overtime. Ryan got the kids settled and sat alone on the couch in the living room, staring at the television. He thinks back to their college days, when Olivia was always smiling, with a twinkle in her eye and a vision of the future. Now she was a different person, with cold eyes and a forced smile. Ryan began to wonder if he had done something wrong. Was he so focused on his work that he neglected his wife's feelings? He tries to remember what has happened in recent months, hoping to find clues that the marriage is in trouble. It was then that Ryan's eyes fell on the mountain of bills and bank statements on the coffee table. He suddenly realized that it had been a long time since he had taken a close look at his family's finances. With a hint of unease, he began to go through the papers. As he looked deeper, Ryan's frown tightened. He realized that the family's financial situation was deteriorating dramatically. Credit card debt has skyrocketed and savings account balances have plummeted. Even more alarming to Ryan were the large number of unidentified expenditures, ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars. Ryan's brain began to race. He recalls Olivia's recent appearance in new clothes, new bags, and sudden sister parties. A horrible thought sprang into his mind. Was Olivia hiding something? With some trepidation, Ryan began to scrutinize the family's credit card statements and bank statements. The more he viewed it, the heavier his heart became. Lots of spending at fancy restaurants, records of stays at luxury hotels, and even memberships to fancy clubs he'd never heard of. All of these expenses were incurred on days when Olivia was working overtime. Ryan felt a wave of vertigo as he eased himself down by holding onto the arm of the couch. He doesn't want to believe it, but all the evidence points to one heartbreaking fact. Olivia may have cheated on him. Just then, the sound of the door lock turning came. Olivia is back, her face weary, but with a hint of excitement in her eyes that she can't hide. "Ryan, you're still up?" Olivia asked casually, while glancing quickly at her cell phone. Ryan struggled to keep his emotions in check. "I'm waiting for you. Olivia, we need to talk." Olivia seemed to sense something, her expression instantly becoming wary. "What is it?" "I'm tired. Let's talk about what's going on tomorrow." Ryan took a deep breath and decided to pick it apart straight away. "I looked at our financial statements. Olivia, can you explain those huge expenses?" Olivia's face instantly turned pale, but quickly regained her composure. "Oh, those. I've recently taken on some high-end clients and needed to meet at some upscale places. It's all part of the job, and the company will reimburse me." Ryan's suspicions deepened as he watched Olivia make light of the situation. But he didn't want to make a big deal out of it, at least not right now. He just nodded silently. "Well, if you say so." In the days that followed, Ryan began to watch Olivia's every move. He noticed that Olivia's cell phone was always carefully guarded and never left her side. She would often receive text messages late at night and see the contents with a small smile. She always quickly locks the screen whenever Ryan is near. Ryan feels like his world is falling apart. He used to think their marriage was perfect, but now it seems that was just his wishful thinking. He began to question his own judgment, and even began to question his own worth as a husband. One night, when Olivia claims to be working late again, Ryan decides to follow her. He left the children in the care of a neighbor and drove behind Olivia's car. Olivia's car ended up in the parking lot of a fancy hotel downtown. Ryan's heart raced as he watched Olivia gracefully walk into the hotel lobby and then take the elevator up. Ryan sat in the car and felt a surge of nervousness. He wants to storm in and question Olivia, but he's afraid to face the truth. Just then, he saw a familiar figure walk into the hotel. That's Alan Henderson, senior partner at Olivia's law firm. Everything is understood. Ryan felt a sharp heartache, as if someone had stabbed him hard in the chest with a sharp knife. He used to trust Olivia so much, love her so much, but now it's all gone to shit. For the next few days, Ryan was in deep pain and confusion. He didn't know how to face this harsh reality. He began to neglect his work and was often distracted throughout the day. His coworkers had noticed the change in him, but no one knew what had happened. Ryan is starting to question everything about himself. He looks back on their married life and tries to figure out what he did wrong. Is it because you're so focused on your work that you're ignoring Olivia's feelings? Is Olivia attracted to other men because she's not good enough? These thoughts tormented him day and night, preventing him from sleeping. At night, when Olivia is asleep, Ryan often sits alone in the living room, staring at their wedding picture. They are so young and happy in the photo, with a vision of the future in their eyes. But now, everything has changed. Ryan started thinking about their future. Should he expose Olivia's lies and confront her? Or should he pretend he doesn't know anything and continue the sham marriage for the sake of the children? Every choice was agonizing for him. Sometimes Ryan thinks about divorce, but the thought of losing his children overwhelmed him with fear. Ethan and Sophie are the most important people in his life, and he can't imagine life without them. Ryan started to run away from reality. He began to drink heavily, often late into the night by himself. Alcohol seemed to be the only thing that took his mind off the pain for a short while. But each time he sobered up, only deeper despair awaited him. At work, Ryan's performance was deteriorating. He began arriving late and leaving early frequently, and the project was seriously behind schedule. His supervisors talked to him many times, but Ryan was always perfunctory. He knows he's ruining his career, but he can't help himself anymore. Just when Ryan thinks he's hit rock bottom, fate deals him one last blow. On their anniversary, Olivia tells him she's traveling for a week. Ryan knew it was another lie, but he was numb and just nodded silently. That night, Ryan sat alone in his darkened living room, a bottle of whiskey in his hand. He thought back to their first date, their first kiss, the day they proposed, Olivia's happy smile at their wedding. All the good memories turned into irony, piercing his heart. It was at this point that Ryan suddenly realized that he couldn't go on like this. He had to make a change for the sake of his children, for his own sake. He decided not to run away anymore, but to face the reality bravely and find his dignity. Ryan put down the bottle and wiped the tears from his face. He knew that the rest of the way would be hard, but he had to be strong, because right now, only he can save himself. The next morning, as the sun shone through the curtains, Ryan felt his first glimmer of hope. He doesn't know what the future holds, but he does know that starting today, he will take back control of his life. Ryan Mitchell stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at his haggard face. The once vibrant eyes were now bloodshot, and the stubble on his chin looked disheveled. He took a deep breath and resolved to put an end to this life of self-loathing. Enough, he said to himself in the mirror. It's time to pull yourself together. Ryan realizes that if he wants to save his life, he must take action. But speculation and sporadic financial records alone were not enough. He needed hard evidence. Ryan begins to formulate an elaborate plan, determined to expose Olivia's betrayal. First, Ryan quit his job. He tells Olivia it's because of the stress of the job and that it's going to take some time to adjust. Olivia looks a little surprised, but doesn't press the issue too much. Ryan was secretly glad that it was just what he wanted. Next, Ryan embarked on an elaborate splurge. He withdrew large amounts of cash and falsified records of gambling and luxury spending. Meanwhile, he quietly deposited the money into a secret account. Ryan knows that if he really wants to fight a divorce case, he'll need enough financial support. Ryan also hired a private investigator. He spent several days carefully selecting and finally chose a retired police detective named Frank. Frank is experienced, discreet, and most importantly, he understands Ryan's situation. I need you to watch my wife 24/7, Ryan told Frank. I need to know her every move, especially who she's with. Frank nodded. I understand. I'll do my best to gather all the evidence I can. You may be faced with a harsh reality. Ryan smiled bitterly. Is it more brutal than what I'm going through right now? Over the next few weeks, Ryan received daily reports from Frank. At first, the reports were bland and uninteresting, just a record of Olivia's daily routine and social activities. But over time, some suspicious patterns began to surface. Olivia often travels to a fancy hotel after work. She would stay there for a few hours before going home. Even more disturbing, Alan Henderson, a senior partner at Olivia's law firm, always enters the hotel shortly after her as well. Every time he saw such a report, Ryan felt a sharp pang of heartache. Though he has long suspected Olivia's betrayal, the harshness of the truth is still too much for him to accept. A few times, he almost impulsively drove to the hotel and tried to catch the adultery on the spot. But reason eventually overcame impulse, and he knew he had to stay calm and gather more evidence. In addition to surveillance, Ryan began installing hidden cameras and recording devices in his home. He hated it and felt like a voyeur, but he knew it might be the only way to get decisive evidence. Every time he installs new equipment, Ryan feels a wave of nausea. He thinks back to the happy times he and Olivia once spent in this home, and now this is the way to expose her betrayal. But he forced himself to continue, telling himself it was necessary. In the meantime, Ryan began to learn about divorce law. He spends a lot of time reading legal documents and consulting with lawyers to understand his rights and the challenges he may face. He is determined to gain the upper hand in possible future legal battles. However, as the evidence accumulates, Ryan finds it increasingly difficult to confront Olivia. Every time he saw her, he had to force himself not to take the truth out of his mouth. Sometimes, when Olivia smiled gently at him, Ryan would even falter. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding? Maybe there's still room for redemption? But every time that thought comes up, Ryan remembers those hotel photos, those questionable expenses, those late-night texts. He knew he couldn't fool himself anymore. Ryan's only solace during this difficult time was his children. He began spending more time with Ethan and Sophie, taking them to the park and tutoring them in their homework. Ryan found that the only way he could forget the pain in his heart for a while was through the laughter of his children. But even such moments bring new pain. Ryan began to worry that once the truth came out and divorce was inevitable, would he be able to see his children regularly? Will he lose their love? These thoughts often left him tossing and turning late at night, unable to sleep. Just when Ryan thinks he's gathered enough evidence, Frank makes a big discovery. "I think you should see this," Frank said, looking serious as he handed Ryan an envelope. Ryan opened the envelope with a shaky hand, and inside were several photographs. The photo clearly shows Olivia and Alan having an intimate meal at a fancy restaurant. What's even more shocking is that one of the photos captured the moment they kissed passionately. Ryan felt a wave of dizziness and had to hold onto the table to stay on his feet. Even though he had long suspected it, the moment he saw the evidence with his own eyes, he felt a gut-wrenching pain. In this, Frank handed him another document. "I found out that Alan recently bought a house in the suburbs. Olivia's name is on the real estate papers." Ryan's eyes widened. It's not just a dewy-eyed marriage. Olivia and Alan are clearly already planning their future. "Thank you, Frank," Ryan said with difficulty, "for a job well done." After seeing Frank off, Ryan sat alone in his study, staring at the photos and papers. His heart was filled with conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, but strangely enough, a hint of relief. Finally, it all came out. No more suspicion, no more self-doubt. Ryan knew it was time to take action. But how to act? Ryan considered confronting Olivia directly, but he quickly dismissed the idea. He needs more time to prepare and make sure he is in a favorable position, both legally and financially. Ryan decided to continue his splurge program. He began frequenting casinos to make sure he left enough evidence of his gambling problem. Meanwhile, he continued to secretly transfer most of the money into his secret account. He also started looking at ways to protect his assets. Ryan consulted with several financial advisors to learn how to legally transfer some of his assets into his children's names to ensure they would not be divided in a possible divorce proceeding. In the process, Ryan realizes he's becoming a stranger. The once honest, kind Ryan Mitchell seems to have disappeared, replaced by a calculating, wary man. Sometimes, when he looks at himself in the mirror, he barely recognizes the man. But Ryan told himself it was all necessary. For his own sake, for the sake of his children, he had to be strong. He had to be ready for the coming storm. At the same time, Ryan is preparing for the changes his children may face. He began quietly arranging counseling for them, hoping to help them better cope with possible family changes. During this time, Ryan and Olivia's relationship became increasingly distant. They rarely talk, and when they do, it's only about housework and children. Ryan finds out that pretending not to know anything is a lot harder than he thought it would be. Every time he sees Olivia, he has to force himself not to let the truth out of his mouth. Finally, after nearly 6 months of gathering evidence and preparing, Ryan felt he was ready. He made an appointment with the best divorce attorney and prepared a detailed financial report and list of evidence. The night before Ryan was set to confront Olivia, he sat in his study, reflecting on the past few months. He thought of their first date, of Olivia in her white wedding dress, and of the joy when their children were born. Tears flowed uncontrollably. Even though Ryan knew everything he did was necessary, he was still heartbroken over what he was about to lose. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that starting tomorrow, his life would change forever. Ryan took a deep breath and dried his eyes. He knew that tomorrow was going to be a tough day, but he was ready. Whatever happens next, he will face it with courage. Because now, he's no longer the foolish husband who was kept in the dark. Now Ryan Mitchell, a man ready to take back control of his life. Ryan Mitchell stands in front of his bedroom's floor-to-ceiling mirror, carefully straightening his dark blue tie. His fingers trembled slightly, reflecting the nervousness and uneasiness within. Today is the day he decides to show his cards to Olivia, the moment when 2 years of preparation will finally come to an end. Ryan took a deep breath and tried to calm his racing heart. His mind flashes back to the countless good times he spent with Olivia, moments that used to make his heart flutter and are now nothing but bittersweet. "Daddy, you look so handsome today." Sophie's voice came from the doorway, interrupting Ryan's thoughts. Ryan turned and forced a smile. "Thank you, baby. Daddy has something important to do today." A pang of guilt welled up in his heart, and he felt a gripping pain at the thought of how what was about to happen might affect the children. At 7 p.m., Ryan sits in the dimly lit living room, waiting for Olivia to come home. A stack of papers lay on the coffee table, the evidence he had painstakingly gathered over the past 2 years. Every photo, every record, was like a sharp knife stabbing deep into his heart. Ryan felt a wave of vertigo as the sound of a key being inserted into the door lock rang out. Olivia walks into the house, and a flash of surprise and unease crosses her face as she sees Ryan sitting in the dark. "Ryan, why are you sitting in the dark?" Olivia's voice held a hint of nervousness. Ryan spoke slowly, his voice low and husky. "We need to talk, Olivia." Olivia froze in place, her instincts telling her that something bad was about to happen. Ryan turned on the desk lamp, and the dim light illuminated the papers on the desk. "What is it?" Olivia asked, trembling, even though she had already guessed the answer in her mind. Ryan took a deep breath and forced himself to look Olivia straight in the eye. "This is evidence of you and Alan. You're cheating, that house, and your future plans. I know all about it, Olivia." Olivia's face instantly turned pale, her lips trembling as she tried to say something, but the words stuck in her throat. Ryan looked at her with conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to rush up and question why she had betrayed their marriage, and the other part hoped it was all just a bad dream. "Ryan, I can explain." Olivia finally finds her voice, but her words are cut off by Ryan. "Explain what?" "Explain how you lied to me? How you betrayed our family." Ryan's voice was filled with pain and anger. "I really want to know, Olivia, what made you think it was okay to do this to our marriage?" Olivia's tears begin to fall, and her voice takes on a choked tone. I don't know. It just happened. I felt alone. I felt neglected. Alan, Don't mention that man's name." Ryan interrupted her in a harsh voice, the anger inside him nearly consuming him. He thought back to those nights when Olivia had said she was working late when she was actually in another man's arms. Each memory was like a sharp knife, stabbing deep into his heart. Olivia fell onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. Her heart was filled with remorse and fear. She realized what a terrible mistake she had made, but now it seemed too late. She looks at Ryan's pained expression and suddenly realizes she may have lost the man who loves her forever. "Ryan, please forgive me," Olivia choked out. "We can start over. I'll change, I promise." Ryan closed his eyes and felt a sharp pain in his chest. How he wished he could believe Olivia's words and go back to his old, happy family. But he knew that once trust was broken, it could never be fully repaired. "No, Olivia," Ryan said calmly, determination in his voice. "It's too late. I want a divorce." The words were like a hammer blow, shattering the last shred of hope in the room. Olivia collapses to the floor, bawling. Ryan, on the other hand, felt a strange sense of calm, as if a weight that had been weighing on his heart for years had finally been lifted. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house became incredibly depressing. Ryan and Olivia hardly ever talked to each other, exchanging information about their children only briefly when necessary. The children were keenly aware of the tension between their parents, but both tried to maintain a superficial calm in front of them. Ryan started working on the divorce proceedings. He contacted an experienced divorce attorney who explained the situation in detail and provided all the evidence. The attorney listened and nodded approvingly. "Ryan, you've done a great job of preparing. We have a good chance of winning." However, things start to get complicated when Olivia receives notice of divorce proceedings. She seemed to finally realize the gravity of the situation and began to resort to various means to try to salvage the situation. She called Ryan frequently, texted him, and even waited for him in front of the office when he left work. "Ryan, please give me another chance," Olivia tearfully pleaded. "I know I was wrong, but I really love you and the kids. We can go to counseling together and rebuild our relationship." Ryan felt an inner turmoil. He had loved this woman so much, and they had been through so much together. But whenever his heart weakens, the heartbreaking photos and evidence come to mind, reminding him of the betrayal he suffered. "I'm sorry, Olivia," Ryan said, fighting back tears. "There's no going back." Seeing no hope for reconciliation, Olivia's attitude suddenly hardens. She hires an aggressive divorce attorney and begins to launch an onslaught against Ryan. She claimed that Ryan had a gambling problem, was incapable of caring for the children, and even accused Ryan of emotional abuse. Ryan was shocked and angered by the sudden attack. He had hoped for a peaceful divorce, but now it looks like it will be an uphill battle. The atmosphere in the courtroom was stark and tense as Ryan Mitchell sat at the plaintiff's table, struggling to maintain a facade of composure. His fingers unconsciously rubbed the buttons of his suit, but inside he was in waves. Across the room sits Olivia, looking haggard and nervous, but still with a hint of stubbornness in her eyes. Ryan took a deep breath as the judge called the trial to order. He knew that an uphill battle would follow. Sarah Thompson, Olivia's attorney, spoke first. Her voice was clear and strong, and her eyes swept sharply over the jury. "Honorable Judge, jurors, today, we stand here not only to discuss a divorce case, but to reveal the truth behind a seemingly perfect husband." Ryan felt a pang of discomfort, and he knew what was coming next. Sure enough, Sarah began to list his abnormal behavior over the past 2 years. Frequent gambling records, large cash withdrawals, and even some inexplicable hotel stays. This evidence clearly shows, Sarah's voice was accusatory, that Mr. Ryan Mitchell not only has a serious gambling problem, but he may also be having an extramarital affair. He is simply not entitled to custody of the children. Ryan clenches his fists and fights the urge to stand up and retort. His insides were roaring. "These are all traps I've carefully designed to expose your betrayal." But he knew that now was not the time to talk. Ryan's attorney, Michael Anderson, has the floor. Michael stood up nonchalantly, a confident smile on his face. "Your Honor, jurors, my client, Mr. Ryan Mitchell, did engage in some seemingly erratic behavior. But we can't help but wonder what led to these behaviors." Michael pulls out a stack of papers and begins to show the evidence of Olivia's infidelity one by one. Intimate photos, hotel records, secret purchase contracts. With each item on display, Olivia's face whitens. Mr. Ryan Mitchell's actions are nothing more than the self-protection of a betrayed husband. He had to resort to these tactics to gather evidence of his wife's infidelity. Ryan looked at the shocked faces of the jurors and had mixed feelings. He didn't want it to come to this, but Olivia's toughness left him no choice. Olivia sat in the dock and felt the world spinning. She never thought her secret would be revealed in this way. Shame, anger, fear, all sorts of emotions tumbled through her mind. She looked to Ryan, hoping to see a glimmer of compassion in his eyes, but saw only indifference. The judge allowed the parties to cross-examine. Olivia's lawyer, Sarah, was the first to speak out. "Mr. Mitchell, do you admit to having a gambling problem?" Ryan calmly replied, "I admit I did go to the casino, but that was just to create evidence. I have never been addicted to gambling." "So, do you admit that you stayed at the hotel on multiple occasions and may have had an extramarital affair?" Ryan's heart raced, but he forced himself to remain calm. "I did check into hotels multiple times, but it was to stalk my wife. I was never unfaithful to our marriage." It's Michael's turn to question Olivia. "Ms. Carter, do you admit to having an affair with Mr. Alan Henderson?" Olivia bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. "I admit I made a mistake, but it was just a moment of weakness. I love my family, and I love my children." "So, do you admit to misappropriating family funds to purchase property for Mr. Henderson?" Olivia was silent for a moment, then finally whispered, "Yes, I admit it." The entire courtroom was in an uproar. Ryan closed his eyes, feeling both a twinge of relief and some indescribable sadness in his heart. In her final statement, Sarah tries to salvage some sympathy for Olivia. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Olivia Carter did make a mistake, but she is a good mother and she loves her children dearly. We urge you to consider giving her a chance to change her ways." Michael emphasized Ryan's patience and sacrifice. Mr. Ryan Mitchell could have ended the marriage immediately upon discovering his wife's betrayal, but he chose to endure it in order to ensure that he could continue to care for his children. Doesn't a father like that deserve custody? Ryan and Olivia's eyes meet in the air as the judge adjourns the court pending a verdict. At that moment, both saw the pain and regret in the other's eyes. They were once in love and once thought they would be hand in hand for the rest of their lives. But now they're on the opposite side of the court. Ryan's heart is full of contradictions. He was relieved that he had won the case, but at the same time he was saddened by the complete breakdown of the marriage. He knows that no matter what the court decides, their lives will be changed forever. Olivia, for her part, is in deep remorse. She began to realize the damage her actions had done to her family. She regretted her betrayal and her failure to cherish the happiness she once had. But now it's too late. The entire courtroom was silent as the judge announced the final verdict. Ryan was awarded primary custody and most of the family's assets, while Olivia was required to pay alimony. The moment the verdict was announced, Ryan felt a sense of relief. 2 years of preparation and endurance finally paid off. He glanced at Olivia, who was slumped in her chair, her eyes vacant. Ryan felt no joy of victory, only a faint hint of pity and regret for the past. As he left the courtroom, Ryan's attorney, Michael, patted him on the shoulder. "Congratulations, Ryan. You won." Ryan smiled bitterly. "There are no real winners in this war, Michael. We all lost." That night, Ryan sat on the couch at home, looking at the sleeping faces of his children with mixed feelings. He knew that the real challenge was just beginning. How to heal the wounds in the children's hearts and how to rebuild a happy family. All of these require more efforts from him. But for the moment, Ryan felt a glimmer of hope. He believes that with love and courage, he will be able to face any challenge ahead. Because now he is no longer the foolish husband who was kept in the dark, but a strong, confident father, a man ready to start over. After the dust settled from his divorce, Ryan Mitchell found himself at a crossroads in his life. The victory in court did not bring him the joy he expected. Instead, a deep sense of emptiness gripped him. As he stood alone in his home, once filled with laughter, the silence almost suffocated him. However, Ryan soon realizes that he can't dwell on the haze of the past. For himself, and more importantly for his children, he must pull himself together and start a new life. He sets about redecorating the house in an attempt to erase the memories of Olivia. Every painted wall and every new piece of furniture is like laying the foundation for a new life. The kids had a tougher time adjusting than Ryan expected. Even though he was granted primary custody, Ethan and Sophie still ask about their mom from time to time. Whenever this happens, Ryan's heart clenches, but he tries to remain calm and answer the children's questions as objectively as possible. Mommy lives in another place now, but she still loves you, Ryan always told his kids, even though he was conflicted when he said it. To help the children through this difficult time, Ryan hired a child counselor. At the counselor's suggestion, he began scheduling individual time together for each child in an effort to fill the void left by the mother's absence. On weekends, Ryan takes Ethan fishing or accompanies Sophie to ballet class. These moments together not only brought father and son closer together, but also made Ryan realize anew that there are many good things in life. However, raising two children on your own is no easy task. Ryan often feels overwhelmed, especially when dealing with what are traditionally considered motherly roles. He learned how to braid hair, started working on how to bake birthday cakes, and even attempted to make a Halloween costume. These seemingly small, everyday tasks give Ryan a sense of fulfillment that he's never experienced before. Financially, Ryan is under tremendous pressure. The divorce proceedings had consumed a significant amount of his savings, and the job he had previously quit to gather evidence was now an obstacle to his reemployment. Ryan began actively looking for new job opportunities, but he soon realized that as a single father, finding a job that balanced work and family wasn't easy. After months of hard work, Ryan finally got a chance. His former employer, CTS Corporation, is looking for an experienced product manager. Even though the position paid less than his previous position, Ryan decided to take on the challenge. Returning to the workforce puts Ryan under a great deal of pressure. Not only does he have to prove his worth again, but he also has to find a balance between work and family. Sometimes he had to take the kids to the office and arrange a makeshift play area for them in the corner of the conference room. Despite the difficulties, Ryan's efforts soon paid off. He led a project that brought in significant profits for the company, which made the management of the company re-recognize his value. Gradually, those skeptical voices disappeared and were replaced by appreciation for his professional abilities. However, success at work didn't quite fill the void Ryan felt inside. Late at night, when the children were asleep, he often sat alone on his balcony, staring at the stars. He begins to wonder what led him and Olivia to this point in their marriage. Does he share in the blame? In this self-reflection, Ryan realizes that he may have been too focused on his work in the past and neglected Olivia's feelings. While this doesn't excuse Olivia's betrayal, it does make Ryan start to re-examine his lifestyle. Over time, Ryan learned to balance work and family. Instead of dedicating all of his time to the company as he once did, he began to cherish every moment he could spend with his children. He attends Ethan's soccer games and Sophie's piano recitals. Little things he once ignored that are now the most precious parts of his life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.